All right, guys, it's Tim O'Connor, once again, your Thursday host for A Free Solution. Thanks, as always, to WYSL and WACK for airing Libertarian Politics. Now, guys, I'm going to do something a little bit different today. Once again, I am out chasing the almighty dollar, but it is for you December 2nd, 2021. And I've got something that I want to play for you to start the show today. It's if you guys are watching the video online, you can see my Queensland, Australia hat. This is a shout out to the folks in Australia. It's just a guy at a protest who got caught on video, offering some thoughts and some words, and I wanted to share them with everybody out there in the audience. So here we go.
Same reason I served there. I served people of East Timor and Australia for their independence and their freedom. And if you think back to the 1990s, the East Timorese were screaming for freedom, and they fought and they fought and they fought and they got their freedom. And I was more than happy to go. After I'd served my time, I thought I would relax. I suffered a lot as a result of my service. But I thought I'd relax to retire. But this is something we cannot do. We cannot ignore this. It's garbage. I was at the first march, I'd rather be there. The second march, people were afraid. The fear just means false evidence appearing real, the face of everything can come up. World War II veterans will be back. He knows what fear is. There's nothing wrong with fear. There's nothing wrong with anxiety. Courage is just having fear and still doing what you know about it when you're afraid. That's a simple definition of courage. Even when I'm shaking and scared, I still stand up for freedom. You all need to do that. These medals don't mean anything without these Australians. Us, as a team. We're a front of it. I have a wife, I have children. I'm a human. I don't care what colour your skin is. I don't care if you call yourself after or martyr. I don't care what swings you between your legs. If you're a human and you want freedom and you don't want to be caged, well said.
All right, guys. Those were powerful words. I hope everything came through on the audio okay for you. Fear, face everything and recover, or false evidence appearing real. Guys, those are powerful words. And as we all know, here in America, Australia is going through some experimental lockdown trials with their reaction to COVID, and perhaps their reaction to COVID is even messier than ours, even more authoritarian than ours, even more painfully reactive to a threat. So when we take a look at the Omicron variant coming to America, and we need to take a look at guys' words, people's words and people's actions, and we need to take a moment and reflect on how we're going to allow this to shape our lives and our children's lives. I don't think that it can be understated that we're stuck in an authoritarian spiral. Like the disease is worse than the state's attempt to try to correct it, right? Like we've already pre-declared a state of emergency to prepare for more tests and prepare for more vaccines. And so look, some of you guys are big vaccine fans, some of you guys are not. It's a personal choice decision, and you have to take into account who you are, where you're at, what you're doing, and whether it works for you or not. And we've lost sight of that. We're seeing reports all over the state. Paramedics are now having to step up and solve the healthcare crisis shortage, guys. The shortage was brought about by chasing people away who were brave enough to do their job in the face of this disease, who did not want a vaccine. Okay, they didn't want a vaccine. It's the vaccine came through at guys, and this is warp speed. Okay, like warp speed for a vaccine, a new health technology brought forth, and so people are reluctant to take it. Now, the people that face this crisis head on, the people in healthcare, the people in hospitals, we're always at risk from being exposed to COVID. Obviously, that's where people go to get treated. But when we fire them for not participating in a government mandate, okay, it's bizarro world for me. It doesn't make any sense. We face everything and recover. False evidence appearing real. I feel like both of those quotes from that guy from Australia make sense in this context. Okay. We have to face everything. We have to face facts about COVID. COVID's not going away, guys. All right. It's here. It's here to stay. We have to move forward and we have to figure out the best way to do it. And guys, I'm going to tell, I want to tell you that I believe, and I have evidence of, and I want to share with you that there was a shortage of human infrastructure already going on in our hospital system. Okay. And to exacerbate, and this by and large applies to New York State, guys. I don't think other states are facing this as bad as we are. There already was a shortage of healthcare capital, of human capital in the healthcare industry. Okay. There already was a Filipino nursing program. Okay. That Kathy Hochul solutions are not solutions, guys. They're dangerous. They're nonsense. And look at the problems that they're causing. Hospitals are suspending services. Hospitals are withdrawing services. Hospitals are putting services on hold. And now, unprecedented perhaps, paramedics are being forced to participate at the hospital when they should be basically getting ready for their next call. Um, I, I don't I don't know that this ends well unless we accept this reality that there are going to be human beings that take the vax and there's going to be human beings that don't take the vax. And maybe we get into some black market healthcare, guys. I mean, imagine that. Okay. Imagine, because there's such a shortage of healthcare that people have to go seek healthcare options outside of the current system. And guys, like, there's real options outside the current system that are good. Like, I have a direct primary care physician. Okay. He did a show with me. He feels the current system of hospital care and big business style doctoring is relatively unsustainable. I, basically, to me as a libertarian, when I was going to my first doctor, my most recent doctor before this doctor, it was like a box checking, check the squares, do this, refer you to this specialist, refer you to that specialist, refer you to this. It was like a money punching ticket. You go in, oh, you have a stomach ache. Well, we're going to send you for an endoscope. Okay. Then they send you for an endoscope. The endoscope guy finds something, and he's got to send you to another specialist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, down the line. It's like this big business. I don't know, kind of a nightmare, right? It doesn't, healthcare doesn't make sense anymore. It's lost its personal touch. You don't grow old with your doctor anymore, unless, guys, you step out of that system. And it costs a little bit of money. It costs a little bit of time. It's worth it, though. All right. So, guys, I don't know if you check out any of my other stuff, but I did a show with Larry Sharp on Monday night about the DEC. And when we get talking about in the next couple of segments, there were things that I wanted to talk about the problems with the DEC. And there's things that I want to share with you people in this audience about the DEC and about the state of New York. And I'm a little bit fried out from the COVID thing, but I wanted to share that guy's message from Australia. It was probably about a year ago, but his power and his passion, and he doesn't care what swings between your legs. He doesn't care about the color of your skin. Those things are freedom. Those things are free solutions. And guys, hang in there. Bear with me. Thanks for joining me. Once again, it's Tim O'Connor, your Thursday host on WYSL's A Free Solution. And don't forget, WACK a little bit later in the day. And I will be back after these messages. All right, welcome back. Once again, it's Tim O'Connor coming at you on the airwaves of WYSL, offering up what I like to call and what we believe in, what libertarians believe in. We're calling them free solutions. So I mentioned that Larry and I did a show on the DEC, and that's the Department of Environmental Conservation. And I, I want to talk about basically how they've put a big drag on New York State and how they basically pigeonhole us and how they basically chase away small businesses and how they prop up big businesses and all the things that they do. And so in preparation for the show, I had asked on my Facebook page about people's opinions about the DC and some of the problems that they have with it. And I just kind of, I sort of made the promise that I would read them on the air, and I did get through a number of them on the air, but I didn't get through all of them. And so a couple of them that I missed are really good. And so I just thought I'd run down through them. One of the issues with environmental conservation, and I'm not sure if this is a DEC issue, but the bottle and can return business. If you're basically extorted hundreds of dollars a month to keep it running, when we're not really sure that it does anything to do environmental conservation. It would be a nice side hustle if you were to open up a bottle and can return and resell it, and maybe it would help the environment. But basically, if you want to do it, it's a tax. Of course, guys, the plastic bag issues at the stores come up, right? A lot of you and we're old enough to remember when we switched from paper bags to plastic because we were going to save the environment. We wanted to save trees, and the paper apparently comes from trees. And so basically now, in a way to save the environment, we have converted from plastic back to paper bags. And guys, I'll be honest with you, that doesn't make any sense to me. I was probably annoyed when we switched from paper to plastic, and I definitely was annoyed when we switched back from plastic to paper, but I wasn't as annoyed about switching from paper to plastic. That part's irrelevant to me. But what they did, what they snuck into the bill was an authority for local governments to levy a charge on a paper bag, which I think that they should just adjust their prices. But also the local municipalities or local villages or towns can levy that charge themselves and collect revenue off of forcing you to use a paper bag. And of course, the goal is to get you to bring bags from your house. But I don't know about you. When I get there, I'm an impulse shopper, and I'm basically stopping at the store on my way home, and I don't carry bags to carry groceries from the store to my car. I mean, basically, it's pretty much an annoying thing. One other one that came up about the DC that was a big one. And Larry and I did talk about it, but I think we can talk about it a little bit more right now today here on a free solution. You actually need a permit to hunt and fish on your own property. If you don't participate in the permitting process and you're hunting on your own property, I'm pretty sure the DC has the right to confiscate your guns. They certainly can issue you a fine, and you certainly are going to get viciously punished. All right. And that's the other thing about New York State, guys. Everything that we do, we get viciously punished for. We up the ante all the time for minor transgressions. So basically, then another guy talked about the DC. Had a fuel oil leak at his house, needed to get cleaned up. They had to pay for the removal of the soil as a hazardous waste. They then find out subsequently from the hauler that is used to cap a local landfill, which means if you're going to not throw it away and use it to cap a landfill, it seems like perhaps it isn't as hazardous as you think. And then, I mean, there's harsh and large amount of fines to go with every single interaction that you have with DC. They're charged with supporting their operations through collection of fines and fees. So they certainly take full advantage of that. And guys, that's a problem with law enforcement. If there's they're going to be, there's an incentive, right? They're incentivized to collect money, all the way down to the point of a guy was walking home from hunting, had his gun unloaded, was on the side of the road, didn't have his blaze orange hat. And this is another story from my page. Didn't have his blaze orange hat on, or didn't have the required amount of orange safety gear. And of course, he gets stopped. He gets a ticket. He's going to have to pay a fine. The guy wasn't hunting. The guy wasn't in the woods. The guy wasn't behaving unsafely. He was walking home from hunting on the side of the road with an unloaded gun. Not good enough for the DEC officer. He still gets slapped with a fine. So one of my buddies points out they rarely do anything to conserve the environment. Rather, they just generate revenue. And that is a fact. A lot of people pointed to the fact that occasionally DEC officers, when they're out enforcing the law, and they're stopping people to check whether they're following the rules and regulations, may not actually be aware of the law themselves. And of course, people find that frustrating. All right. And then, of course, you always have the guys that do, in fact, think that DEC is a good operation. And I'll go into that too, guys, because DEC does do some things that are good. Okay. But DEC is at the forefront of sustainable materials management policy in the U.S. Polystyrene, food waste, plastic bags. And he's thankful. And okay. All right. And I'm thankful for a few things that the DEC does too. Okay. I'm thankful for the notion that the DEC participates in helping people access the environment, that they do look out for the environment. I can remember a time when there were no bald eagles in New York State, and now they fly over my house practically every day. I can watch them out on the lake that I live on, cleaning up scraps, finding things. You occasionally get to see them dive in and catch a fish. All that stuff is pretty cool. And that is in large part thanks to the DEC and their efforts. But one of the areas where they're supposed to be zealously protecting the environment, and people are alleging that they're not, is that they're supposed to make the public aware of pesticide use in their area. And I have a number of people that feel that they do not actually do that. And that seems to be a problem. Okay. And pesticides are dangerous. The DEC did find and participate in revitalizing the pesticides that we use. There is a certain amount of, information that you should be sharing with your neighbor. If you're going to be spraying pesticides next to their house, that's a problem. So they basically more about how they collect their revenue. People like to complain about that. Certainly a friend that works in government, actually an elected libertarian, pointed out that they are a total drain on taxpayers, right? Her office is a decals issuing agent, and her average commission for each sale is only 5%. It's a drain on time. She doesn't feel like it pays off well enough. And I think that she's probably making a pretty good point there. The government kind of takes advantage of its power in situations like that. And we came up with a couple good ones. One of my friends reached out and said that, and this is a good point, guys. We've got to remember this. Humans are part of the environment. Humans cause most modern environmental issues, but we also do a lot to correct them. But this is a comment directly off my page. Other countries have solved many issues, from flooding to pollution and oil spills, and yet we don't learn or apply them here. We take single studies to make billion-dollar policies without looking at their efficacy on a global scale. And will they make impact if only locally applied? Lastly, the agency pigeonholes resources on small scale projects and programs rather than pool its influence into developing more environmentally safer alternate methods that companies and industries could apply on a large scale. Making the point that there is some science that, like, mushrooms can break down plastics. And so perhaps the DC is too worried about virtue signaling over actually applying real science to our current environmental concerns. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, and hopefully we have enough time, but DC has done some things like destroy, okay, absolutely destroy mom and pop groceries, okay, mom and pop groceries. And here's how they did it, okay. Your local town, and this happens all over New York State. It's happened hundreds of thousands of times. The DC wrote new regulations on the storage of gasoline, okay. So they weren't accusing these places of creating a waste. What they were saying was there was a potential for hazardous materials to be spilled from their current containment system. They forced them all basically out of business. So local small towns are forced to drive miles and miles to fill up their car. Okay. So you don't get to go to your local country store anymore. Buy some gas, buy some Dinty Moore beef stew, and check out the news with your neighbors and stuff like that. They took that away. That props up big business. It's a real problem and people seem to ignore it. It's to the point where there's towns that don't have gas stations and the closest gas station is like 20 miles away. That is an inefficient use of resources. The DC overregulated. They don't make it readily available. They think that they don't want gas stations in these local towns. But think about how much, if we have a societal agreement, and guys, I'm coming up on a break, but if we have a societal agreement, think about how much fuel is wasted. Once again, it's Tim O'Connor. This is A Free Solution, your Thursday host, and I, once again, will be right back. And once again, welcome back to A Free Solution. And guys, this is a platform that I'm honored to share with Larry Sharp. This is a platform I'm honored to share with Kevin Wilson, that I'm honored to share with Andrew Hollister. And guys, I say thank you, but I can't say thank you enough to WACK and WYSL for being brave enough to allow us this platform to discuss libertarian politics. Now, before the break, guys, we were talking about the DC in New York and how it basically, and maybe I'll even give them the benefit of the doubt, inadvertently props up big businesses in the name of protecting the environment. And how uncooperative they are with small business. Okay. This notion that now people have to burn gas, waste gas, pay taxes on that gas, waste what we're saying is a precious environmental resource that causes problems. Okay. Supposedly the burning of fossil fuels causes problems, but instead of taking a real hard look at that, what the DC does is force mom and pop local gas stations, selling a little bit of gas just to keep their lights on. Guys, we see Dollar Generals propping up all over the place. We see little like big gas stations going into areas where they would never go into before. And that is because the DEC took small businesses out, took them out. They just made it too expensive to have gas stations in your local community. That's too expensive for your mom and pop grocery stores to have gas stations. And it's huge, guys. It chases away the entrepreneurs. It chases away everything. And guys, there's also linked to the DC. And it was one of the issues that I really wanted to cover with Larry, but we got on such a great roll. We talked for about an hour and a half about issues in New York State. But one of the issues I wanted to cover about the DC, all over New York State, they're talking about there's a crisis of affordable housing. And I just want to tell you a little story that affected my life personally, as some of you know, and as I mention all the time. I'm a builder, I'm a contractor, I'm a guy that likes to work with his hands. And I'm passionate about working with my hands. I'm also passionate about expressing myself. And that's why I'm glad I have this platform and I get to share it with great guys like Larry. But the reality is I can remember about 12 or 13 years ago, a friend of mine, an acquaintance of mine, buy some land by a local school in a small village. And they wanted to build, they had something like 25 acres and it was prime land in a great location, very, very close to a very, very good school in a community that is suffering like so many small communities all over New York State. Doesn't have a gas station. Yeah, I mean, it does have a gas station. Sorry. But that was the bravery of some other individuals. So I'll talk about it another time. And dedication, bravery and dedication. But so basically this guy wants to build I don't know, 25 acres. He wants to break it up into, 50 building lots, and he wants to put in a road, and he wants to put in some houses, and he needs guys to help him put in the houses. And I'm like, well, what could I do to help him out? And what could I do to help myself out? Because I always wanted to build houses and sell them. And this looked like the absolute perfect opportunity for that endeavor. All right. So I call him up, and he's got a partner, and his partner's in the excavating business, and his partner's going to build the road, and they're all excited. And this was a real opportunity for the local community. Okay. This was a real opportunity for young guys who wanted to be entrepreneurs to take a real stab at providing something effective and efficient and beautiful, and build a community, build onto an existing community, raising the tax base, taking some land and turning it into residential property. It was farmland. And guys, again, I've mentioned before, we have, I don't know if I mentioned on this show, but in the county that I live in, we have over 12,000 acres of formerly productive agricultural land that is simply going fallow. Nobody's doing anything with it. Nobody's doing nothing with it. Maybe they get to hunt on it if they know the owner, things like that. Anytime you try to build anything, it gets quashed. So on that note, right, first, because of the size of the project, they need some sort of environmental impact study, and then they need to talk to a historical society about basically seeing if it was a I want to say a residence area. I'm not sure if that's exactly the right term, but basically a center of Indian activity back a couple hundred years ago. So by the time that all these things get done, this stuff takes years. Okay. This stuff takes years. This community lost any sort of opportunity for this development to happen. Okay. Then, of course, guys, people give up, man. That's it. They stop paying their taxes on the property. They never got the release from the historical society about whether it was Native American land or not. The environmental impact study, ridiculous, guys. Like, cows have been grazing on this. People, it should have been a no-brainer. It should have been easy to do. And the DC and New York State stands in the way of entrepreneurially minded people, small business people, all the time. Now, big business, if a big business wanted to come in and do that, somebody with millions of dollars, they would have went ahead, done the building, paid a few fines, made their profit, and moved on. But guys like us, we were starting out our lives, right? We're in our 20s and 30s, and we want to make an impact on our community. Of course, we want to make some money, right? And we want to make a name for ourselves. That chance has been destroyed over and over and over and over again throughout New York State. And it's because of strict regulations. It's because of ridiculous requirements that stand in the way of any kind of rational or reasonable development. It's nonsense. Okay. And so that one affected me personally. So you can hear me getting a little bit emotional about it. Because I never would have, who knows, right? It never ever came together to be a real opportunity for a local community. 50 houses, guys, 50 houses on a school that has 400 kids and not full. Okay. 50 houses, 40 houses on the impact on that community would have been astronomical. It would have been astronomically positive. And so now the town itself is wonderful, cute little town, but the businesses are gone. There's empty storefronts. They're things that used to happen there don't happen there. They used to play baseball there. They used to do lots of great things. And now that community is teetering on the brink of going away. The school is always teetering on the brink of being absorbed by a larger school. And believe me, had 50 houses been built, or 25 houses, or even guys, even if it was 10 houses, that is a substantial impact on revenue for that community. It's a substantial impact on kids for that community. It's a substantial impact on small town life in upstate New York. And to have it just be pushed away and denied and fought at every step, guys, that's our life in New York State. And that's why we're circling this authoritarian drain. Like the notion that Larry and I were talking about. And guys, you think about this, right? The DEC should be a service organization. They should say, you know what, you want to do that? Here's what you got to do. Here's what we can do to help, and get behind the projects as fast as possible, right? If they want some sort of environmental impact study, they ought to come out, get that thing done, and bottom line it, get it through, approved, and moving on. Okay. These things are where we're killing our state, we're hurting our communities, and we're losing an opportunity to the rest of the country. Okay. The rest of the world too, probably, right? So, but people are leaving, fleeing, and the only people talk about how many people are leaving New York State. It's not the Democrats talking about it. It's not the Republicans talking about it. It's guys like Tim O'Connor, Larry Sharp, Kevin Wilson, Andrew Hollister, Cody Anderson, Rich Pertel, all the people that you've met on this show. People are fleeing the state. And then until we wake up to that reality, okay, we're never going anywhere. And we need to know why. And one of the reasons, guys, we don't need $1 million study as to why. There's a lack of opportunity. And every time somebody tries something, and I'll tell another story after the break, but every time somebody tries something, they bring the forces of the government to bear to prevent them because they're jealous or they're petty or they don't want their life disrupted in any way, shape, or form for a better future for the children and our communities and our small town living and our rural American life. And guys, if it doesn't stop, what's our choices? I'm at an age where I'll pack up and leave. All right. So will everybody else, just like everybody else. And that's the reality. So a free solution, DEC, service organization, and they better start heading in that direction. Be right back after the break. All right, guys, welcome back. I get a little grumpy. I get a little sideways. When we talk about the fate of New York State and what's going on. And so in a way I apologize, but in a way I don't really apologize. I want people to be as fired up as I am about the possibilities for change and about the real problems that are going on in upstate New York, that are going on actually now all over New York. People are fleeing the densely populated urban areas for a more rural, sedate lifestyle. Purportedly or allegedly, we're not seeing it necessarily in Otsego County, but I guess on the southern side of Delaware County, down in Kingston, things are exploding. All those things are probably good for these smaller cities and these interesting rural areas. Like, I get it. But then what happens to New York City? I don't even know, right? Rents dropped by 25% or something last year. Probably they're coming back now. But so basically that DC and how they basically destroyed this young man's dream of having a development in a small town, and how it basically personally affected me. I saw opportunity there for myself. And so that's how these things go. Here's another one, right, guys? Again, you've heard my discussion about how there's 10,000 acres of formerly tillable, formerly used land in Otsego County, right? So about in the same time frame, guys, there was still some life in upstate New York, still life in this community. There was a guy that wanted to start another baseball park, okay? And actually he wanted to focus on girls softball. And like I said, there's empty farms all over the place. And he had some land and he had about 600 acres and he wanted to take a few hundred of those acres and he wanted to turn it into a girls softball complex. Now, two of the very best things that Otsego County has going for it, two of the biggest revenue generators, two of the biggest things that bring people into our area. We're very touristy. And this is aside from the Baseball Hall of Fame, which is in Cooperstown, New York. And lots of people, about 1 million people go through that a year, which is great. Okay. I love that people come here for to learn about baseball, to learn about baseball's history, to learn about the former greats of the game, the future greats of the game, whatever. All that stuff is wonderful. Okay. But the real issue is this guy, we have 2 baseball camps. They do a great business. They provide this competitive baseball concept for kids who are aging out of Little League, about 12 years old. Okay. And it's just this kind of theme parkish baseball kind of deal. They play 12 games in 5 days. And I coached for a local team that got invited to play. And guys, to see the kids enjoy that moment and to get there, and it doesn't matter how good they do, it doesn't matter how bad they do. This is you're making memories on a baseball field, whether you're a coach or a kid or your parents, participating. It's a wonderful, beautiful experience because you should check it out. So anyways, this guy wants to do the same thing for girls. He wants to do the same thing. We already have this whole setup for boys. We already have thousands and thousands of acres of land, formerly productive land. And as we get more efficient in producing agriculture, and as people drink less milk, and as factory farms take over the world, we have extra land in Otsego County. And they occasionally they come up with, they want to grow hops. And so like 8 years ago, hops was going to be the big thing to drag Otsego County out of the doldrums, and the government was handing out money. And of course, like the big shrewd investors, the guy that owns a freaking real estate, there's a guy that owns a company that builds roads, right? Imagine that, which I hate roads, guys. We've had that conversation. But this guy that builds roads, he's got millions of dollars. He's got millions of dollars in equipment. He's the guy that gets to, invest fully in hops, and he has a beautiful hops farm, and he's done a nice job with it. But that's credit farming is another entirely different business that benefits big businesses. And I don't know, I'm not saying the guy isn't honorable, and I'm not saying anything like that. It's just shrewd people know how to take advantage of these systems, and regular middle-class people do not. And so this guy has this great, big, huge hops farm, and it's great. But anyway, so this guy wants to put in a girls' softball complex, and he wants to put in like 12 fields, 14 fields, and he wants to do the same thing, the same exact thing that we're already doing for boys. But because occasionally during the summer, traffic is rough, and occasionally during the summer, it gets a little loud and it gets a little noisy. The township that he wanted to put it in, the locals went after him hard, and they used the DEC, and they used these things about pollution, and they used noise pollution and light pollution, and they used everything. And guys, this guy was like in his 60s. And so basically he passes with his dreams unrequited, unfulfilled, and broken against the rules and regulations of the state and of the I want to say pettiness of his neighbors. Okay. These things are awesome. He had 600 acres. He was going to use about 100 acres for this softball complex. And guys, I mean, these stories are all over my area, and I presume that they're all over New York State. If we don't take a stronger stand, if we don't do what I want you guys to do, what I think is a better way, if we don't start examining who's talking about population loss, who's talking about creative, crafty solutions for a path towards freedom, who's saying that mandates are hurting us, who's saying the vaccine is your choice. I don't think that Republicans are saying it. I don't think Democrats are saying it. And some of them as individuals are, and some of them are offering mealy mouth, wishy-washy stances about it. Because libertarians are stepping up and saying, look, mandates are bad. Get people back to work. Let's try freedom in New York State. Let's be a shining beacon of freedom in New York State. That's libertarians are saying that. Okay. Libertarians are saying that. And they're putting their monies where their mouths is. They're putting their hours where their mouth, where they're putting hours in, they're putting effort in. And again, guys like Larry Sharp and Kevin Wilson and myself and Cody Anderson and Rich Pertel and guys, Emmy Dayton, Thomas Daniel Queter. My God, I forgot to mention his name. You guys, you owe yourselves the opportunity. You owe yourselves the notion that you can re-examine what's going on in New York State. You can re-examine whether the two-party system serves you and whether you're seeing any of the progress that you want to see. We got to Buffalo, out in Buffalo, guys, you guys should be like, Elon Musk is eating your lunch out there, guys, because of crafty bribe deals for good jobs. I mean, come on, man. None of that makes sense. And you guys also have out in the Lackawanna Orchard Park area, you guys have a guy that I really want. First of all, I really like Dwayne Whitmer, the chair of the Erie County Libertarian Party. I hope that you guys, he's got some great programs coming up. I hope you guys check it out. He puts out great and interesting news. But you guys have an assembly representative out there who, and I'm going to find his name for you here in just a second, but who proposed an insurance carve out. If you have health insurance and you don't get the COVID vaccine, this guy wants you to not be covered. He wants you to pay your own expenses if you catch COVID and you have to go to the hospital for it. And his name is, let's see here. Give me 1 second. His name is Pat Burke. Okay. And Pat Burke is a representative for the Lackawanna Orchard Park area. And he's introducing a bill that allows insurance. And these are his own words. He is introducing a bill that allows insurance providers to deny coverage for COVID related treatment to those who refuse to be vaccinated. Do your part or pay your own way. Freedom isn't free. I don't think that this guy understands what insurance is. I don't think he understands that it's one of the most regulated businesses on the face of the planet. And I don't think that he understands anything about freedom to begin with. The freedom, okay, when we make it, everything about what he's doing is awful. And I want this guy to lose election. I don't want him to win, guys. I feel bad for you out there that your representative is so vicious. And basically what he's doing is carving out an exemption for people that he doesn't agree with, for who don't want to take a vaccine. He's carving out an exemption for insurance companies to make insurance companies more profitable. Surprise, surprise, right? Surprise, surprise that somebody out there anywhere, that somebody wouldn't do that. The other news out in Erie County, out in the Buffalo area, guys, out towards you, further away from me. But it's interesting. This Earl Gingrich, who is the Marilla supervisor in Erie County, has already stepped up and said his town is not going to comply with the Erie County mask mandate. And guys, I don't know where you are on masks, but I have not seen any study that says to me that masks do any kind of good. And basically what we're doing is Erie County, the executive, I can't remember his name right now, but comes out with a rule, says, hey, guess what? Omicron variant maybe is coming, or Corona, guess what, is exactly what we thought it was, a seasonal flu bug type virus. Everybody's got to mask up. That's the rule. This guy says, that's not our rule. And guys, I'm coming up on the end of the show. Local politics, local solutions, local bravery. That is a path back to freedom. It's a path back to freedom in New York State. And somehow we've got to stand up to this authoritarian spiral that we're in. And once again, guys, it's Tim O'Connor. It's a free solution. Again, check out my stuff on Facebook. Check out my show, Coffee and Freedom, on Saturday mornings. I want to thank you all for being here. Check out the stuff I did with Larry Sharp the other night. It was all good stuff. Thank you all, and have yourselves a great weekend. Oh, and don't forget to join Kevin and I tomorrow, same time, same station, WYSL, WACK. Guys, have a great